Good evening, Peter.
Good morning, Ron. How are you?
Well, aside from a computer that was lackadaisical and had to be rebooted, I'm fine.
It seems to be running now. Oh dear. Stuff from my antivirus popping up again. This is not my usual laptop, so it's all updating itself and all that sort of thing. Yeah, been a long day for me as well. I'm quite tired. I've been just trying to rustle up support for one of my Facebook friends who got arrested on Saturday without a warrant and without any real basis in law for the charges, which is sort of interesting to see what sort of justice we're being handed out nowadays, where people can be kidnapped against their free will.
Well, somebody posted that's Pieta, I think her name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. That's in your neck of the woods. How far is she from where you live?
Well, she's about 1,000 kilometres, or maybe a little bit more even. So she's right up the Gold Coast, which is the northeast of Australia.
Oh, okay, right below Indonesia then, pretty much.
Well, no, northeast.
Well, a little bit to the east of it.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not quite up in the tropical regions yet, but it's about 1,000 kilometres from Canberra, about 800 miles or something like that. So. But yeah, I've been trying to drum up support for her, and she got arrested on a Saturday morning and unceremoniously carted off. The police couldn't produce a warrant or any relevant paperwork. They were claiming that she was on bail, which she in fact was not. And so there's a whole bunch of illegal stuff going on, basically. She's basically been kidnapped. And we're just trying to rally up enough support that people let these guys know that we're watching and that these sort of shenanigans shouldn't be tolerated in a society where we should be really on a constitutional common law, not this corporate law. And the way the whole...
You know how I feel about those things, and I did, the video was posted, so I did watch the whole arrest video, which was quite interesting, raised a lot of questions in my mind, of course, and those that have seen it will probably raise questions in theirs as well.
Well, absolutely. She's
a dynamic.
Yeah, well, she's a freedom campaigner, and she was up on a minor drug charge, cultivation of a couple of marijuana plants, and that's something that normally in Australia you get slapped over the wrist over. They decided to make a big kerfuffle about it and got her into court, and she refused to contract with the magistrate. She asked him for his writ of commission and refused to enter the dock, and that's the first thing that you do when you don't contract. That's all the freeman sort of stuff that you can find out about on the internet. And she didn't contract. She stayed outside of the dock and asked the judge to produce his writ of commission. Now, under the Australian Constitution, not the corporate one, but the real one, every judge has to be appointed and has to have a writ of commission to prove that he's actually appointed as a judge, that he's qualified and appointed and operating under common law lawfully as a judge. And of course, the moment she asked the judge for the writ of commission, the judge basically just got up, left, took off, didn't say a word. Off he went. Prove to me that you're not a corporate cowboy. Bang, he was out of there. And so she declared herself, as you do, the person highest lawful standing in the court, and dismissed the case. And she left. And then they have claimed that she was on bail, which she never signed anything. She was never given any paperwork, and she would not have consented to that anyway. She wouldn't give or consent or contract with the corporate justice system in any way, shape, or form. So they basically set, I believe, another court date, and didn't inform her of that either. And the police arrested her on the grounds that she was on bail and she was scheduled to appear to court, and she did not. Whereas she wasn't on bail, because when you go out on bail in any country, I suppose it's the same procedure. You have to sign a contract saying that you'll abide by the bail conditions. So they've basically arrested her on a charge that she was on bail and she ran, whereas she wasn't even on bail. She was just basically refusing to contract with an illegal corporate entity that called itself a magistrate or called itself a court. And so now that, sorry.
I have something sort of similar going on. I mean, I don't know how closely you followed some of my arrest thing for driving without a license and everything. And in February of this year, I made lots of appearances in court, and I was forced to sign under threat of being tasered and further beaten up. I mean, literally, they treated her, quite honestly, very nicely. I mean, with me, they literally attacked me in my own home for driving, which I obviously wasn't driving. I had never received a summons.
But did you have a witness?
Huh?
Did you have a witness, and was it being videoed?
No, I didn't even own a video. Well, I had my webcam, but they didn't even let me put a pair of shoes on. I mean, that's how. I mean, they arrested me in my stocking feet, and when they released me from prison later that day, or from the jail later that day, I had to walk 2 miles in stocking feet till I could find somewhere to use a phone, because nobody outside the jail or anything would allow me to use their cell phones. There were several people that told me no, and then I went to the nearest store, which was about a mile away, and they wouldn't let me use their phone, and I didn't have any money in my pocket, no wallet, no money. I mean, I had just thrown a pair of shorts on when the police came to the door. Anyway, I don't want to go into that whole story, but the point that I'm making now, after they gave me 2 charges, driving without a license, which they were willing to dismiss when I actually got a license, and resisting arrest without violence, because I tried to pull my arm away from the policeman who grabbed my arm.
Well, anyway, that's an interesting charge, resisting arrest without violence.
Yeah, because I was trying to pull my arm away from him when he grabbed me. He was still standing outside of my house. I tried to close the door. He reached in, grabbed me, tackled me on the floor, put my arm in a hammerlock behind my back, which I couldn't even raise my hand above my head for a time. But anyway, I keep getting away from the point that I'm making and into the story. In February, they ended up finding me guilty and dismissing the charges for resisting arrest, but finding me guilty of driving without a license, which charge they had previously agreed to waive. And so they fined me costs of court, which is $200 and something, and I said, okay, I will charge you the same amount of money for the charge of resisting arrest that you did not produce a witness for. And the judge sent me a letter and said both cases are dismissed. Well, now the court is trying to collect the $200 and something, and I have until the 25th or 6th of this month, I think, to respond, or otherwise they're going to revoke my license, my driving privilege, which isn't a privilege, it's a right.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But in any case, I have to respond to that now, or otherwise I will face the possibility of them saying, well, you're driving on a revoked or a suspended license. And I've renewed my license until 2020.
Well, what's with the renewal of these licenses anyway? It's all just, it's
all BS.
Yeah, it's all just BS. Harvesting system. You know how to drive. They know that. You don't have to pay for that over again and again and again. Why? Oh, the money has to go to Wall Street, obviously.
Well, interestingly, I had agreed when the time for my renewal came up, I created a contract with the state saying that I didn't need a license, but to avoid making problems for myself or for anybody else, I agreed under certain conditions. Well, they sent my check back with the application and said, well, it arrived late. Well, it was sent out on my birthday, which is the date that it expires, or the day before my birthday, actually. And it was the postmark on the time. I even put down when it was mailed, and so I have all of that documentation, and they returned it to me uncashed check. They refused to contract with me under my terms. So there's a whole, the system is corrupt, Peter. We know that, and I'm stealing your thunder by talking too much.
No, not at all. I'm enjoying the story, actually. And it's just amazing how it's the same here. And Pieta's being made a great example of because she basically resisted the system. And she's been thrown in jail now. She's going to be there till the 30th and then reappear in court. She's not allowed any visitors or any contact, which, for a person on a minor drug charges where it all began is just absolutely ridiculous. So she's pretty much in the hole for 7 days or however long it is. I don't even quite know what the date is.
Sounds like she's a political prisoner more than anything else from the little bit that I know.
Absolutely. Well, they're setting out to make examples of people now. They're setting out to make examples of people who have issued courtesy notices and I think at first the whole Freeman organisation, the whole Freeman movement, and the courtesy notice, the OPPT movement, really took them by surprise and got them off centre. And I think they're trying to now establish sneaky and nasty ways to fight back against that. Which means that it's actually achieving something, that it's actually penetrating into consciousness. But she's being made an example of with
just like Kerry Campbell was some weeks ago, a few weeks ago, whatever.
Exactly. Her partner went to court on Monday when she appeared in court after she was arrested on Saturday, and he was told that the case would be heard in court number 4, and so he had a lot of supporters with him that, we rustled up a bit of support on Facebook, etc. And the video went viral and the postings went pretty much viral, and so there was quite a little crowd there with him, and they sat and waited in court for all day until the magistrate finished all his cases, and her case didn't show up, and it turned out they'd been lied to, and the case was heard at 9:15 in the morning in court 3. Which he found out afterwards, so there was no way that anybody could reach any support, so they sort of preempted the whole flash mobbing thing and all that. And again, we don't even know if she had a lawyer there, really. It's total kangaroo court, as we call it here in Australia, and it's getting out of control. These I suppose, like Aristo said in his video the other day, we got to love these guys as well from a perspective of unconditional love, but from that perspective of your individuality and of conditional love, you have to love them pretty firmly, I think. Something's going to have to be done about these jokers, and the new government we have here in Australia, there are whispers going down that they're going to introduce a paper terrorism act.
Well, they have something very similar in the United States. It's not they're going to introduce. It's already introduced and on the books. But these are false laws. These are not real laws. These are the criminal element that's called government trying to cover their behinds because they've been ripping people off for a long time. You call it kangaroo court there. Here it's being railroaded.
Yeah.
It's all a criminal injustice system against the people by the corporation. And thank God people are waking up all over the world, and I do believe the tide is changing. I do believe there are elements even within the military and within the government and within, major international institutions like the United Nations that are starting, there's elements that are trying to actually protect people's rights. I mean, I see that. Maybe everybody doesn't. Comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of people who are stepping out into their right. There are a lot of people who are stepping out into their power. And I think for the spiritual people of this world, it is really time to really start accepting the totality of reality as well. They really need to step out. And it's easy to be in that totality of unconditional love. It is actually a very easy thing to experience. It doesn't take any practice or any method or any experience to do that. In fact, all those sort of things are detrimental to it because, when you're entering that unconditional love, that universality, there is no you that practices anything. There is no you that's doing anything. It's a not doing. For me, these sort of things occurred when I was, sitting out in nature and observing myself. And rather than observing as a visual thing, for me, it became more like listening. And listening that's inclusive, and I call it attention. This is the opposite of concentration, really. Or concentration is concentrating on a fragment of attention. And in attention, basically, you're letting everything in. You're not excluding anything. When you're concentrating, you're trying to exclude sounds, exclude the room that you're in, as you're sitting there with your eyes closed, or even exclude yourself. It's exclusive. And inner listening, and I did a video on this. It's called "Listen to Yourself and Be." That's right. It's on my YouTube channel for those who are interested. And there is no doing it. There is no doing that, because when you just begin to listen, and instead of excluding sounds and actually identifying sounds, you begin to listen to the totality of the sound around you. And listening is in my opinion, works a lot better than observing visually, visualizing stuff, because listening is not something that you do. It just happens, it just completely happens. And when you start to become more inclusive, like you could be sitting in the park and, the trucks are there and the screaming kids are there and, cars are pulling in, but the birds are singing and, you're hearing everything. And you don't exclude any of it, and you don't name any of it. When you start naming the sounds, you go back to your breath, and, you just go be with your breath for a moment, and then and sooner or later you begin to listen, and you hear more and more and more, and sooner or later you find that you're actually listening to yourself as well. Is that inclusiveness is included you and everything around as one. And that's where you get into the levels of that unity love, and that feeling of unity love. And it's beautiful and it's blissful. And that's where you have those, like Aristo said, the baby-like unified sense experiences. And for a lot of people, they're kind of stuck there. They think that's what it's all about, to get to that, to be in that bliss, to be in that. And it's not what it's all about, It's, again, always keep coming back to the both and, because as an individual, and this is what I found useful and so useful in Aristo's last video with you, which I got to sort of watch broken up into 10 pieces the other day, bit by bit. Is understanding that the opposite of that attention is concentration, and that when you're doing the breathing exercises and working with the energies in your bodies, that takes concentration, and that takes practice, and that takes someone to do it. So you're coming from the universal into the individual. And I believe there needs to be a balance of both of those things, because if I just develop some abilities, then what's there to stop me abusing them? And that's what the psychopaths do. They only do that side of developing their abilities. And they're very diligent at it too, I must say. And so you need to do both. You need to heal yourself. You need to own what you feel. You need to own who you are. You need to fully accept what and who you are. You need to be able to get out into that individuality. And when I say you need to be able, when you're actually out into that attention, there is no me, there is no center. You don't have a center. And that's what the universal love is, because at that moment, you are actually individual, no longer individual. You're that universal love, and you're in everything, and you're in everyone. That's how you perceive yourself there. And then there's still a source that comes out of, which goes even deeper, but that is so individual. You cannot speak it. You cannot name that. That's an individual experience for everyone. And once you've had that experience, it's the in-breath and the out-breath again. You have to come out, and you have to take action. And when you see this injustice, you need to do something about it. And I think a lot of the spiritual people that have reached the not doing of being the universal love need to now come into focus, as Aristo said, as an individual, to get that justice out. That justice is a part of that universal love as well, in a personalized sense. And that's where we need to get to. We need to not work out of our hurt and our woundedness and say, those guys are bad, I want revenge. We just need to get to that point where we're standing totally in our own power, well aware of us as the universal love, as the universal being, the centerless being, and well aware of the strength of our individual being that's centered in that, that's aware of that. And that's where we need to develop our abilities. And I have been very much on a path of not wanting to develop abilities, because 20 years ago I did actually have some practices that gave me some experiences of abilities, and they scared me because I could manipulate people with them. I could put thoughts in people's heads. I could change what people were saying mid-sentence just by concentrating on them and implanting the thoughts. And it scared the bejesus out of me, that power. And that's why I rejected it, because I was not beyond my woundedness, and I was not beyond my psychopathy, and I was afraid of my dark side. You know, there's that power that you always said, the power is in the dark. And I was afraid of that. I was very much afraid of that. And I decided there and then that that was something I had to step away from. And it's not till many, many years later that I started to get into the other experience of naturally going out and, you know, you remember it as a me, I did that, but it's not. When you're going out, you universality of it, there is no you. There is no psychological center. There's centerlessness, limitlessness. But your brain is still recording it, so you still have it available to you as a memory, and that's where you say, when I go out into it's really contradictory, but I think you get the gist.
No, it's paradoxical, and
that's it, paradox, man. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
As Carl Jung said once, the inordinate number of spiritual weaklings makes paradoxical truth dangerous. And I'll never forget that quote. I learned that from my mentor, Bruce Morgan, probably in 1979 or 80, 81, somewhere back in that neck of the woods, when I was starting to wake up spiritually, that there was more to it than just Christianity, that Christianity was bigger than what the religion had held for people. There was more to it. Anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
Of course there is, yeah. So, you know, when we're just reacting out of this woundedness and this pain, we're basically being like them, and that's where I rejected those abilities, because I realized that would make me basically a powerful a-hole, really. and it's not until I started going into that universality and then I thought, oh well, that's it. Like a lot of the Advaita people think that's it. You know, you're the eyes in the sky and all that. And now I've come to realize that, no, you do need to take action. We do need to take action against these psychopaths. Not for revenge, not to harm them, but, at the very least to sequester them, to get them, to a position where they can...
Stop the insanity.
Yeah. Get them to a position where, you know, they can't hurt humanity anymore, and put them somewhere and unleash Doctor Who Len on them with his Ho'oponopono and a few of these tribal elders and stuff like that, who really know how to heal. And I'll bet you, you know, when society, when humanity as a whole lifts its vibration and starts to heal, then the psychopaths might be on the outer of that, but sooner or later they'll die of old age, or they'll get healed, you know.
Hopefully get healed. I mean,
yeah,
that's really my desire is not to punish people. My desire is to reconcile everybody to the wholeness, to the oneness.
Yeah, and that's what they've taught us. Again, that's the conditioning that we have: punishment, punishment, punishment. Because even if we overwhelm them, we end up hurting them, so we end up creating more psychopathy within ourselves. So that's how they perpetuate themselves. And we need forgiveness, that's for sure, but we need a strong forgiveness. We need a strong hand forgiveness, tough love, exactly right. And there are those that, and if for the viewers that haven't looked into it, Ho'oponopono and Doctor Who Len, very interesting material indeed.
Indeed. Joe Vitale too was connected with that, with Dr. Yulin.
Yeah, he's connected. I prefer to go back to the source, go to Hulen. Very interesting interviews on YouTube with Dr. Hulen. Fantastic stuff. And he comes out of that immense, profound depth of selflessness, and he comes out and he interacts so strong within the self that he can heal the self, and that's what we need to do. We need to politely say no thank you to these megalomaniacs and stand in our own power that's rooted in our universal love, and look for the remedy together, and that's where there's still for me a big bottleneck, is that a lot of people are stuck in that bliss of the universality and not coming out of it into action. And this is what we need. We need for everybody on every level to wake up and go into action. And one of the things that you hear from those people a lot is, oh, it's all already done. The future's already set. It's inevitable. And I disagree with that fully.
That's programming.
Yeah, I disagree with that fully. That's just out there to lull you to sleep when you get into the bliss stage, into the universal stage. But you've got to snap out of that and come up with an action plan. You've got to action that universal love, and sometimes that universal love may involve, giving some of these maniacs a bit of a bitch slap here and there. I'm not totally against that. I think violence is part of our nature as well, as long as it doesn't come from your hurt or from your woundedness. But, if I were to sit in the park and somebody were to try and abduct a 5-year-old girl, I don't think I'd try Ho'oponopono at that moment. I think I would, do something physical. I'd like to think that I'd be brave enough to do that, but that's love too, and that's compassion as well, and even for the perpetrator, because you're stopping him from generating a lot of karma for himself as well. So, you're stopping him from sending a lot of negative energy in motion that has to come back to him, because that's all that karma is. There's no guy sitting there with a pencil saying he did something wrong, so he needs to, that's back to the old paradigm of punishment and reward and all that sort of thing. But we need to certainly take action, and these megalomaniacs need to be stopped. And the way that they're talking about the internet too is the way they want to go about it with the Y770 protocol, which is basically what they're using in China to stop people from accessing websites and to follow what everybody's doing. To run that software worldwide would pretty much make this conversation impossible, basically. It would just be flagged as an inappropriate action and bang, off you go. So these type of things that they're trying to do, the paper terrorism laws in Australia, where if I hand somebody out a foreclosure flyer or a free man document, that I could be charged with paper terrorism and actually be incarcerated for it. It's outrageous and ridiculous, or oudiculous as I like to call it. And we certainly do need to stand up against these things. So I want to say thanks to Aristo for the breathing exercises and everything like that, because I've now decided that I'm mature and responsible and rooted in my love well enough to start consciously working with practicing and control and energy, basically. So it's really, really interesting what's coming out of Aristo's neck of the woods at the moment. It's very good. I had a quick look. I downloaded the documents and had a quick look at the breathing exercises, and they're very similar to the Qigong type stuff I was doing 20 years ago. So I'm going to look forward to strengthening my energy, and I feel the need to do that physically as well as on all the other levels, emotional and mental levels. And it just all came really nicely together when I watched that video with Aristo, and I started remembering what had happened to me 20 years ago, and I started to see the whole contrast and the whole way that the overlap works that he was talking about, and became very clear to me. And sometimes it's just nice when you've got somebody like Aristo who's so concise and so precise in his expression of his energy, to help you put your ducks in a row. And I certainly advise people that they do listen to themselves and experience the oceanic feeling of being no one and being everything at the same time without limits, and certainly go out there and on the other side of that, sharpen the end of your pencil and be able to stand up for yourself and for others and for your rights, because the time is coming where we are going to have to make a choice. There will be no sitting on the fence very, very soon.
Yeah, I agree, Peter. And if you don't mind, I'd like to, wrap this up for today. I really do appreciate you taking time. Glad you got your voice back. And
yeah, that was good. Just want to say a quick thanks to everybody that wished me well on Facebook last week. That was really, really nice. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and thank you for standing up for Pieta. Is that her name? Is that
Yeah,
how you say it?
Pieta. Yeah, Pieta.
Pieta.
Pieta. But it
Okay.
sounds too much like Peter, so everybody goes Pieta.
Well,
But
when I saw it written, it's Pieta or something like that.
yeah,
And anyway, thank you for doing whatever you're able to do for her, and we all need to stick together on this because they're trying to make an example out of her, I do believe, and just as they did with Kerry Campbell. And folks, whether you realize it or not, it's the government that is doing the criminal activity. And people need to be aware of that, and we're already stopping World War III. They're not going to be able to pull that off. So there's a lot of good things happening in the world, and we do need to stick together and stand up for truth. So thanks again, Peter. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Namaste, Rob.
Namaste. Bye-bye.
Bye.